You come here tonight with questions, perhaps with burdens that you do not fully name, and I tell you, the heaviest chains are not forged by others, but by the unseen hands of your own unconscious. There is within every soul a region that is forbidden, à chamber un lit, a wilderness where the banished parts of yourself continue to wander, whispering in the darkness. This is what I have called the shadow, and though you may pretend it does not exist, though you may turn your face away from its unsettling presence, it waits patiently, watching, shaping you from beneath the surface. The shadow you deny will not simply disappear. It will rule your life from the depths. You believe you are free, but your freedom is a fragile veil, stretched thin across a gulf of unacknowledged instincts, wounds, and despairs. The moment you avert your gaze, the shadow begins its work. It slips into your words, in the sharp tone you did not mean to use, in the envy that rises uninvited, in the desire that betrays your ideals. It takes shape in your relationships, drawing you toward those who reflect your hidden conflicts. It even chooses your enemies, for you project onto them all the things you refuse to see in yourself. And when you claim to hate them, it is yourself you despise. Consider this. Every time you denounce a quality in another, every time you recoil from a behavior that disgusts you, pause and ask, what if it is my own shadow I see reflected there? The persecutor and the persecuted are bound together by an invisible thread, woven by the unconscious. You imagine that you live in battle with the outer world, but the fiercest war is always internal. What you repress, what you disown, becomes a tyrant. The unconscious does not tolerate neglect. It demands recognition. And if you deny it, it will seize your destiny. This is why people live lives that feel alien to them. They walk paths they did not consciously choose. They repeat patterns of suffering. They find themselves again and again in situations that strip them of joy. Why? Because the shadow has taken the wheel, steering their lives in the direction of unresolved truth. Imagine a man who prides himself on being generous, kind, and moral, yet deep within him festers a hunger for dominance, for cruelty, for selfish indulgence. He does not acknowledge it. He represses it, but suddenly he finds himself lashing out at those closest to him, humiliating his children, sabotaging his own work. He cannot explain why. It is the shadow fulfilling itself through him. The shadow is not evil in itself, though it contains what you call evil. It is the sum of all that you exclude from the light of your self-image. It is your anger, your lust, your greed, your cowardice, but also your untapped vitality, your creativity, your instincts that could save your life. For the shadow is not only the monster you fear, it is also the guardian of your unlived life. In its darkness lie treasures waiting to be integrated, but first you must confront its terror, and that, my friends, is the path that few dare to tread. When I speak of integration, I do not mean that you must indulge your shadow, nor let it possess you. I mean you must see it, know it, hold its eyes with your own and not look away. This is the hardest task of any human being, to look into the abyss within and not be consumed by it. Yet in this confrontation lies the possibility of wholeness, for wholeness is not perfection. Wholeness is the union of opposites, the marriage of the light and the dark, the recognition that the self is vast enough to contain all contradictions. Until you acknowledge your shadow, you live as a fragment. When you embrace it, you become whole. Think of the myths, the ancient stories that speak across millennia. The hero always descends into the underworld. He faces monsters, serpents, dragons. These creatures are nothing other than the shadow, clothed in symbol, and the hero does not conquer them by denial, but by courage, by descent, by wrestling them until they yield their power. In slaying the dragon, he frees the treasure it guards. This is the eternal truth. The shadow is both the adversary and the key. It resists you, but it also contains what you seek most. A dream once visited me of a man walking through a narrow corridor. He saw doors on either side, each one locked. Behind them came voices, wails, laughter, shrieks. He feared to open them, but as he passed, the corridor grew darker, the air more suffocating. Finally he realized the only way forward was through. He chose a door, opened it, and inside he found himself confronted with an image of his own face twisted into rage. He recoiled, but as he looked longer, the face began to soften, to reveal, beneath its hatred, a wounded child. The dream is clear. Behind the shadow is always a wound. Behind the wound is always a truth. The shadow is not only what is evil in you, but what has been broken, geniet, abandoned. Why then do you fear it so? Because to see the shadow is to dismantle your illusions. You want to believe you are noble, virtuous, composed. You construct a persona, a mask for the world, but the shadow undermines the mask. It whispers, you are also cruel, also weak, also selfish. This dissonance is intolerable, and so you repress. But repression is not destruction, it is exile. And the exiled always return. You cannot escape the shadow. The more you deny it, the more it controls you. It appears in your projections, in the enemies you invent, in the compulsions you cannot resist. It becomes the fate you call bad luck. The sabotage you cannot explain. Denial gives it power. Only consciousness dissolves its tyranny. When you name the shadow, when you bring it into awareness, it ceases to rule and becomes an ally. But this requires humility. It requires the death of the ego's pride, for the ego wishes to believe it is master of the house. In truth, it is but one tenant in the vast mansion of the psyche. As I speak, perhaps you feel the stirring of recognition. Perhaps you think of the moments when you acted in ways you could not explain, when anger flared without reason, when desire overpowered your values, when despair gripped you without warning. Do not dismiss these moments. They are the footprints of the shadow. They are invitations to turn inward. The shadow is knocking. Will you open the door? And let me warn you, the shadow will not be integrated through intellectual curiosity alone. You cannot read about it and be transformed. You must encounter it directly in dreams, in slips of the tongue, in the relationships that challenge you, in the suffering that refuses to end. Every symptom is a message. Every conflict is a mirror. Life conspires to show you what you refuse to see. This is why pain is so often the beginning of growth. The shadow presses upon you until you pay attention. Do not think that by confronting the shadow you will be spared suffering. On the contrary, the confrontation is suffering. It is crucifixion. It is descent. It is death of illusions. But through this death comes rebirth. The one who integrates the shadow becomes unshakable. They no longer project blindly, no longer flee from themselves. They stand rooted in the totality of their being. They are no longer ruled by what they deny. They are free. Do you see now why so many people cling to the mask of virtue, of success, of certainty? They are terrified of the chaos that waits beneath. Yet I say to you, the only true terror is to live in ignorance of yourself. For the shadow you deny will write the script of your life, and you will act it out like a puppet, all the while believing you are free. You will be drawn again and again to those who wound you, to choices that diminish you, to fears that bind you, and you will wonder why fate has conspired against you. But fate is only your shadow in disguise. There is a truth. The modern world resists with every fiber. You are not rational creatures in control of your destiny. You are carried by the tides of the unconscious, shaped by archetypes older than civilization itself. The shadow is one such archetype, and it is inescapable. To integrate it is to accept the fullness of your humanity. To deny it is to be enslaved by it. The more pious the priest, the more dangerous the hidden sin, the more righteous the politician, the darker the secret appetites, the more innocent the lover, the more destructive. The obsession, the unconscious, always demands its share. Think of the dreamer who comes to me with nightmares of being chased through endless corridors. Again and again the pursuer appears, sometimes a beast, sometimes a man, sometimes a faceless shadow. The dreamer flees until exhaustion overwhelms him. When I ask, have you ever turned to face it? He shudders and says no, and yet that is the task, for in the turning, in the moment of confrontation, the dream shifts. The pursuer may dissolve into mist or reveal itself as a wounded part of the dreamer's own psyche. Fear transforms into revelation, flight into encounter, This is the essence of shadow work. What you run from will hunt you. What you face will liberate you. The shadow is cunning. It cloaks itself in the very virtues you prize. A man devoted to peace may repress his aggression so thoroughly that it bursts forth in passive cruelty, in resentment, in self-sabotage. A woman devoted to selflessness may repress her desire so thoroughly that it erupts in bitterness, in manipulation, in sacred indulgence. The shadow does not disappear. It waits for its opportunity. It is like a river dammed sooner or later. The pressure breaks through, and the flood is devastating. Better to open the channels consciously, to let the waters flow where they may nourish rather than destroy. This is why I tell you, do not aim to be good, aim to be whole. The good that ignores the shadow becomes hypocrisy. The whole embraces light and dark, conscious and unconscious, human and divine. To be whole is to know your capacity for cruelty and choose compassion, to know your lust for power, and choose integrity, to know your fear of abandonment, and choose love without knowledge of the shadow. These choices are impossible. You cannot choose against what you refuse to see. You will imagine yourself virtuous, all while acting under the compulsion of what you deny. Do you feel the tension? It is not comfortable to admit these things. The ego resists with fury. The ego shouts, I am not jealous. I am not cruel. I am not greedy. But in its denial, it blinds itself. And in its blindness, the shadow takes the throne. You must silence the ego's protest and listen deeper. Hear the whisper that says, yes, you are jealous, you are cruel, you are greedy, and more. You are radiant, you are powerful, you are creative, you are alive. For the shadow contains not only darkness, but also light. Many have repressed their strength, their beauty, their genius, because they feared it would make them different, envied, condemned, and so these qualities fall into the shadow as surely as sin. To integrate the shadow is to reclaim not only what is dark, but also what is brilliant. Do not imagine that integration is once and for all. It is a lifelong labor. The shadow is like the night banished by the dawn, but always returning with a cycle. You may bring one aspect into consciousness, only to discover another waiting behind it. You may face one fear, one compulsion, one envy, only to find new ones emerging. This is the rhythm of life. You do not finish the work, you live the work. The path to wholeness is not a destination, but a continual unfolding. Each day asks you again, will you face what you deny, or will you let it rule? The collective, too, has a shadow. Nations, religions, communities, they all create bright ideals, and they all repress what does not fit the image. But the repressed returns in violence, in scapegoating, in persecution. A society that praises purity may unconsciously breed corruption. A culture that worships progress may unconsciously cultivate destruction. Humanity projects its shadow onto enemies, onto outsiders, onto the other. Wars are born not merely from political conflict, but from the disowned shadow of entire peoples. To heal the world, each must heal themselves, for the outer war is only the inner war writ large. And so I say, the shadow you deny will rule not only your life, but the life of your community, your nation, your species. The madness of the 20th century, its dictators, its genocides, its unspeakable cruelty were not the work of monsters alone. They were the shadow of humanity, repressed and unleashed. You must not imagine you are immune. The seeds of that same cruelty lie in every soul. A man who denies his shadow becomes capable of anything. Because he believes he acts in righteousness, the truly dangerous man is not the one who knows he is evil, but the one who believes he is pure. But I do not speak these things to leave you in despair. I speak them so that you may awaken, for in the darkness there is also light. The shadow is not only destructive, it is the doorway to transformation. It is the crucible in which the gold of the self is forged. You must descend into it as Orpheus descended into Hades, as Christ descended into hell. Only by going down can you rise. Only by facing the dragon can you find the treasure. Only by embracing the shadow can you become whole. So I ask you, what is it that you most fear in yourself? What is it you most despise in others? Where do you feel shame so deep you cannot name it? There lies your shadow, and there lies your path. You need not walk it alone. The psyche has within it a wisdom greater than the conscious mind. Dreams will guide you, symbols will reveal themselves, synchronicities will point the way. The unconscious longs for reconciliation. It is not your enemy, it is your partner, your teacher, your mirror. It waits for you to turn and face it. You must understand, the shadow is not only a private phenomenon, it has a face that belongs not only to you but to humanity itself. Every collective movement, every wave of mass hysteria, every outburst of violence that sweeps through nations is nothing but the eruption of a shared shadow. It is the same principle, only magnified when millions of individuals deny their darkness. It gathers in the unconscious of the collective, swelling until it bursts through in wars, persecutions, and the rise of tyrants. A dictator does not rise alone. He is the embodiment of the shadow of a people, a vessel for what they have repressed. If you wish to see the shadow of a nation, look at whom it persecutes, look at whom it demonizes, look at the scapegoats it creates. What you condemn outwardly is what you most refuse to see inwardly. And so you must be wary, for what you most despise in the outer world is a mirror. The foreigner you hate, the rival you envy, the sinner you condemn. These are images of the unacknowledged parts of your own soul. This is why projection is the favored weapon of the shadow. It is too painful to admit, I am greedy, I am cruel, I am weak, And so you project greed, cruelty, and weakness onto others. You fight them, you persecute them, you seek to destroy them, and in so doing, you avoid the real battle, which is always within. The shadow uses projection to keep you blind, to protect itself from recognition, and until you withdraw these projections, you will never truly know yourself. I once asked a man why he despised liars with such ferocity. He claimed it was because he valued truth above all. Yet as we spoke, it became clear that he himself had lived a life of deception, concealing his failures, hiding his desires, constructing a mask that showed only what was respectable. His hatred of liars was not a devotion to truth, it was his own denied dishonesty, staring back at him from the faces of others. The shadow had disguised itself as moral outrage. This is its subtlety, its cunning. It convinces you that you are righteous, even as you act out of repression. Now, let us turn to the dreams, for the dreams are the royal road to the shadow. Dreams do not lie, they do not flatter the ego. They show you what you do not want to see. They drag the shadow into images and symbols so that you may confront it indirectly. A woman dreams of strangling her child. She wakes in horror, insisting she could never feel such hatred, yet beneath her conscious devotion is a fatigue so great, a resentment so unspoken that the dream gives it form. Another dreams of murdering a stranger, only to realize that the stranger's face is his own. These are not to be dismissed as nightmares. They are revelations. The shadow speaks in dreams because you refuse to hear it in waking life. Do not think the shadow is only horror. Sometimes it appears as the opposite, as a figure of vitality, of reckless joy, of wildness, that the dreamer has suppressed. A rigid man dreams of dancing with abandon, his body moving with freedom he has never allowed himself. A timid woman dreams of standing before a crowd, commanding them with fiery words. These too are shadow, for whatever you have banished, whether dark or bright, returns in symbol. The shadow contains your unlived life, the path you did not walk, the voice you silenced, the love you did not dare to claim. To deny the shadow is to deny your fullness. To embrace it is to reclaim your soul. But I must warn you, to embrace the shadow is not to act out its every impulse. To integrate does not mean to surrender. A man who feels a murderous urge in a dream must not kill. He must recognize what the urge reveals. Perhaps it is his need to assert himself, to cut away what is toxic, to destroy what enslaves him. The dream is symbolic, not literal. The shadow demands recognition, not indulgence. If you indulge it blindly, it possesses you. If you deny it, it possesses you. If you recognize it, you transform it. This is the narrow path, the razor's edge you must walk. And what happens when you begin to walk this path? At first, disorientation. The ego feels threatened, its illusion crumbling. You may feel as if you are losing yourself. For in truth, you are the false self, the mask, the persona. It must die for the greater self to emerge. This is the dark night of the soul, the descent into the abyss. You will feel fear, shame, resistance. You will be tempted to turn back, to cling to the safety of denial. But if you endure, if you continue to face what arises, something miraculous occurs. The shadow begins to reveal its wisdom. You discover strength in your anger, clarity in your envy, passion in your desire. What was once monstrous becomes human. What was once unbearable becomes essential. The fragments come together and you begin to glimpse the whole. This is the process of individuation, the journey toward becoming who you truly are, not a mask, not a fragment, not an illusion, but a whole human being. The shadow is the gatekeeper of this journey. It will not let you pass until you have faced it. That is why so few undertake the work. It is easier to remain a mask, easier to blame others, easier to cling to righteousness, but easier does not mean freer. To deny the shadow is to remain a slave. To integrate it is to be free, though the price of freedom is suffering. And I tell you this, the shadow is infinite. You will never exhaust it. Each time you think you have faced it, a deeper layer emerges. Each time you think you have mastered it, it shows you another face. This is not failure, it is the nature of the psyche. You are a vast mystery, and the shadow ensures you never forget it. It is a reminder that you are more than you think, that the self is greater than the ego. Do not despair at its endlessness, rejoice, for it means you are alive, ever unfolding, ever becoming. So when you leave this place tonight, do not ask yourself, how do I eliminate the shadow? Ask instead, how do I meet it? How do I listen to it? How do I allow it to teach me without letting it rule me? Begin by noticing your projections. Where do you feel the strongest emotions toward others? Love, hate, disgust, admiration? There lies a piece of yourself. Withdraw the projection. Claim it. Examine it. Begin by observing your dreams. Write them down. Reflect on them. Ask what part of you speaks through their symbols. Begin by watching your slips of the tongue, your sudden impulses, your inexplicable moods. They are the shadow breaking through. Do not push them away. Ask them what they want. Listen and remember, you cannot do this work in isolation from the sacred. For the shadow is not merely psychological, it is spiritual. To confront, it is to walk the same path the mystics have walked. The path of death and rebirth, of crucifixion and resurrection, of descent and ascent. The alchemists knew this when they wrote of Nigredo, the blackening, the dissolution, the chaos before the gold is born. The shadow is your Nigredo. You must let the old self rot before the new can be forged. This is not a path for the faint of heart, but it is the only path that leads to wholeness. When I speak of the shadow, I do not wish to terrify you. Though its presence is indeed terrible, I wish to awaken you to the necessity of courage, for the path of the soul is not paved in comfort. It is a narrow way, lined with mirrors that show you all you would rather forget. To become whole is to endure the shattering of illusions, to drink from the bitter cup of truth, to kneel before the mystery of your own depths. But beyond the terror is a freedom so vast, so radiant, that once tasted, you will never again wish to return to the sleep of denial. Consider what happens when the shadow is integrated. The man who once hated his anger learns to wield it as righteous fire, protecting the innocent and setting boundaries he once feared. The woman who once repressed her desire learns to express it as creative passion, birthing works of beauty. She had never dared to imagine. The child within, long abandoned, is embraced, and in that embrace, the adult self becomes tender, compassionate, whole. This is not fantasy, I have seen it. I have seen lives twisted by denial transform when the shadow was named, honored, integrated. What once ruled them in secret became their ally. What once poisoned became medicine. Yet you must not imagine the shadow disappears. It remains always a companion at your side. It is not something to be conquered once and for all, but something to be lived with, attended to, dialogued with. Some nights it will whisper again. Some days it will surge into your words or actions. But if you have faced it, you will recognize it. You will say, "Ah, there you are, my darkness, my unclaimed part. Sit with me, teach me, remind me who I am." And then it will not rule you, for you have made it your companion. The ancient alchemists knew this secret. They wrote of the union of opposites, of the conjunctio, the sacred marriage, sun and moon, king and queen, light and dark. These were symbols, not of chemistry, but of the psyche. They knew that only by embracing the opposites within could the gold of the spirit be created. The shadow is half of that union. Without it, you are incomplete. Without it, you are sterile. To reject the shadow is to reject half of yourself. To embrace it is to create the inner marriage that gives birth to the self. And what is the self? It is not the ego, not the mask, not the fragile construct of identity you cling to. The self is the totality of your being, conscious and unconscious, light and dark, personal and collective. It is the God image within, the spark of eternity closed in your humanity. To live in the self is to live beyond fragmentation, beyond projection, beyond denial. It is to stand in the center of the opposites and hold them together. It is to say yes to life in its fullness, to embrace both beauty and terror, joy and sorrow, creation and destruction. This is the ultimate task of individuation, to become the self, but the self cannot be realized without the shadow. That is why I say, the shadow you deny will rule your life. It is not a curse, it is a necessity. It is the guardian at the gate, the threshold you must cross. You may resent it, but you cannot bypass it. If you try to leap over it into the light, you will fall into illusion, into inflation, into spiritual pride. The shadow keeps you grounded, keeps you honest, keeps you human. It ensures that your ascent is real, not fantasy. It roots your spirit in the earth so that your wings may truly bear you aloft. Look to the myth again. Christ was tempted in the desert before his ministry began. Buddha was tempted by Mara before enlightenment. Every hero must face the underworld. Every saint must wrestle with the devil. Every seeker must descend before they rise. These are not merely stories, they are archetypes, eternal truths of the soul. The shadow is the devil, the dragon, the serpent, the underworld. To deny it is to remain forever outside the gates. To face it is to pass through, to die and be reborn. And so I leave you with this invitation. Do not be afraid of your shadow. Do not be ashamed of it. Do not hide from it. Turn toward it with courage, with humility, with openness. Let it speak. Let it show you what you have denied. Let it wound you, for in its wound is healing. Let it humble you, for in its humiliation is truth. Let it terrify you, for in its terror is freedom. For when you embrace the shadow, you embrace yourself. And when you embrace yourself, you embrace the world. And when you embrace the world, you embrace God. Remember, the shadow you deny will rule your life, but the shadow you embrace will set you free.